Welcome to Global Byte. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. The Arctic, once a remote and inhospitable frozen wilderness, has long been a place of mystery and awe, a region where few dared to venture and even fewer could survive. But today, this icy expanse is rapidly transforming into the world's newest and most unpredictable geopolitical hotspot. As the ice recedes at an unprecedented rate, the United States, Russia, and China are locked in a high-stakes race for influence, resources, and strategic dominance, each determined to secure their interests in this emerging frontier. Warships now patrol newly opened sea lanes that were once impassable, signaling a new era of military presence in the far north. Fighter jets crisscross the polar skies, conducting exercises and surveillance missions as nations assert their claims. Military bases, long dormant since the Cold War, are being reactivated and expanded, with soldiers braving the harsh elements to establish a permanent presence. The silence of the Arctic is now broken by the relentless rumble of powerful icebreakers, carving new paths through the thick sea ice. And on the world stage, the rhetoric of leaders grows sharper, as summits and negotiations increasingly focus on Arctic affairs. Russia, viewing the Arctic as its strategic backyard, is investing heavily in militarization, launching new drills and building infrastructure to assert its dominance. Meanwhile, China, calling itself a near-Arctic state, seeks a foothold through massive investments, scientific research, and diplomatic outreach to Arctic nations. The U.S., once the dominant power in the region, now scrambles to keep pace, modernizing its fleet and renewing its commitment to Arctic security in a rapidly shifting landscape. The implications of this new rivalry stretch far beyond the Arctic Circle, affecting global trade routes, energy supplies, environmental stability, and the lives and traditions of indigenous peoples who have called this region home for centuries. The race for the Arctic is on, and as the world watches, the stakes, both for the region and the planet, could not be higher. Climate change is the catalyst transforming the Arctic from a frozen barrier into a new arena of opportunity and conflict. The region is warming nearly 4 times faster than the rest of the planet, shrinking the ice cap and opening vast new stretches of navigable water. Beneath the melting ice lie immense reserves of oil, gas, and minerals, drawing nations northward. New shipping routes like the Northern Sea Route and Northwest Passage promise to revolutionize global trade, slashing transit times between Asia and Europe. These same waters, once natural buffers, now expose new military front lines and vulnerabilities. The Arctic is no longer a remote flank but a potential front line for military operations and power projection. The strategic calculus of the Cold War is being reborn in a warmer, more accessible Arctic. Today's Arctic rivalry echoes the Cold War, when the region was a critical theater for US and Soviet nuclear deterrence. The US and Canada built NORAD in the dew line to detect Soviet attacks, while submarines played cat and mouse beneath the ice. The Soviet Union's Northern Fleet, and its Bastion concept, turned the Arctic seas into a fortress for its nuclear submarines. After the Soviet collapse, military focus faded, bases decayed, and the Arctic became a zone of scientific cooperation. The Arctic Council symbolized this brief era of peace, but Russia's resurgence under Putin and China's growing interest have reignited competition. By the 2010s, the old fault lines re-emerged, now complicated by a rapidly melting environment. The era of Arctic cooperation has given way to a tense new showdown. The stage is set for a 21st-century great game. For decades, the US treated the Arctic as a strategic afterthought, while Russia and China steadily built up their presence in the region. As the polar ice recedes and new shipping lanes open, the stakes have never been higher. The Arctic is no longer a frozen frontier. It's a geopolitical hotspot, and the world's superpowers are vying for control. America's limited icebreaker fleet, just 2 aging vessels, pales in comparison to Russia's massive armada, which boasts over 40 icebreakers, including several nuclear-powered giants. China, too, is rapidly expanding its fleet, signaling its ambitions to become a polar power. Now, Washington is scrambling to catch up, investing billions in military bases, deep-water ports, and a new generation of icebreakers. These projects are not just about defense, they're about securing vital shipping routes, protecting natural resources, and asserting American influence in a rapidly changing environment. The Pentagon is rebuilding the Attic Air Base and constructing a crucial port in Nome, Alaska, both key to projecting power and supporting operations in the far north. These facilities will serve as vital hubs for military and commercial activity. The Coast Guard's Polar Security Cutter program aims to deliver new heavy icebreakers, though delays and budget overruns persist. Each setback puts the U.S. further behind its rivals, raising concerns about readiness and resilience in the Arctic's harsh conditions. To bridge the gap, a partnership with Canada and Finland will add nearly a dozen advanced icebreakers, part of a sweeping $25 billion Arctic security push. These alliances are crucial, combining technology, expertise, and resources to strengthen the region's defenses. Senator Dan Sullivan sums up the urgency. If you find mush, you push. If you find steel, you withdraw. His words capture the high-stakes gamble unfolding in the Arctic, where every decision could tip the balance of power. Despite these efforts, the U.S. remains in a largely reactive posture, struggling to match Russia's entrenched presence and China's rapid expansion. Both nations are investing heavily in research, infrastructure, and military capabilities, determined to shape the Arctic's future to their advantage. The outcome of these investments will determine America's Arctic future, whether it leads, follows, or is left behind at a critical crossroads for global security and commerce. The clock is ticking, and the race is far from over. Every day lost is an opportunity for rivals to gain ground, making the need for decisive action more urgent than ever. The Arctic's fate, and America's role in it, hangs in the balance, as the world watches to see who will shape the future of this critical frontier. For Russia, the Arctic is not just a remote frontier, it's the heart of its strategic ambitions and a cornerstone of its economic future. This vast, icy expanse is seen by Moscow as both a shield and a gateway, holding the promise of untapped resources and new global influence. With the world's longest Arctic coastline stretching thousands of kilometers, Russia has made asserting dominance in the high north a top national priority. The Kremlin views control over this region as essential for its security, prosperity, and status as a global power. Over the past decade, Russia has reopened and modernized more than 50 military bases, forging a formidable chain of outposts from the Kola Peninsula in the west to the Chukchi Sea in the east. These bases are equipped with advanced radar, air defense systems, and rapid deployment forces, making the Arctic one of the most militarized regions on Earth. Russia's unmatched fleet of over 50 icebreakers, including the world's largest and most powerful nuclear-powered ships, guarantees year-round access to the frozen seas. These vessels are the backbone of Russia's Arctic ambitions, enabling both commercial shipping and military operations in even the harshest conditions. Some of the newest icebreakers are now armed with cruise missiles, transforming them from mere support vessels into formidable warships. This blurs the line between civilian and military assets, giving Russia a flexible and unpredictable presence in the region. Russia regularly flexes its muscle with frequent air and naval incursions, often conducting joint exercises with China. These maneuvers send unmistakable signals to Washington and NATO, underlining Moscow's determination to defend its interests in the Arctic at any cost. The Northern Sea Route, running along Russia's Arctic coast, is being positioned as a Russian-controlled toll road. It's not just vital for global shipping and energy exports, but also serves as a strategic corridor for military movement and power projection. By building a heavily defended Arctic bastion, Russia aims to protect its nuclear submarines, which are a key part of its nuclear deterrent, and to deter any potential challenges from NATO or the United States. The Arctic is now a critical front in the new era of great power competition. The Russian bear has fortified its northern ramparts like never before, and it's making it clear to the world it's not backing down from its Arctic ambitions. China, far from the Arctic Circle, has declared itself a near-Arctic state and is pursuing a bold strategy to become a polar power. Beijing's ambitions center on a polar Silk Road, securing access to Arctic shipping lanes and resources. China has built its own icebreakers and conducts regular scientific expeditions, gathering data vital for future commercial and military operations. Its attempts to invest in Greenland's infrastructure and even purchase a former U.S. base reveal its determination for a foothold. By partnering with Russia, China gains access to the Northern Sea Route and deepens its influence in the region. Publicly, China calls for the Arctic to be a global commons, but its actions signal a drive to reshape the region's balance of power. At the heart of this Arctic contest lies Greenland, the world's largest island and a strategic gateway between North America and Europe. Once a static military outpost, Greenland is now a dynamic geopolitical prize coveted for its location, resources, and political influence. The US has pushed to strengthen its presence, even floating the idea of buying Greenland, straining relations with Denmark. China's persistent investment efforts add to the pressure, forcing Greenland and Denmark to navigate between competing giants. Negotiations are underway to update the US military's role, reflecting Greenland's growing autonomy and aspirations. Greenland must balance foreign investment with security concerns and its own path toward greater independence. The contest over Greenland encapsulates the broader Arctic struggle for presence, resources, and influence. Its future is inextricably linked to the fate of the Arctic itself. Russia's military buildup and China's inroads have forced NATO to refocus on the Arctic. The alliance's new mission, Arctic Sentry, aims to bolster security and surveillance across the region, streamlining rapid response. Large-scale exercises like Trident Juncture and Cold Response send a clear message. NATO is committed to defending its northern flank, yet unity is challenged by differing member priorities and US pressure on Denmark over Greenland. The real threat may not be open conflict, but gray zone tactics, covert actions, sabotage, and hybrid warfare. Russia has already tested these methods, straining borders and targeting critical infrastructure. NATO's northern shield must adapt to both visible and invisible threats in this evolving arena. The Arctic's transformation is a microcosm of the shifting global order, with consequences for security, the economy, and the environment. The risk of military miscalculation is rising as rival powers converge in a harsh, unpredictable environment. New shipping routes and resource extraction offer economic promise, but carry immense environmental risks. For indigenous communities, the Arctic gold rush threatens traditional ways of life and cultural heritage. The world must prioritize cooperation, not confrontation, to manage these challenges. The Arctic demands a new model of governance, balancing national interests, security, and environmental stewardship. If we fail here, what hope is there for tackling other global crises? The path we choose will determine whether the High North becomes a legacy of peace or a new theater of conflict.